You ever have that feeling, like something's watching you, but you can't see it? That quiet little instinct in the back of your head that tells you, get out, now. Yeah, I ignored it. It was summer break. I was 17, and I had just made the dumbest decision of my life. My friend Isaiah had invited me to stay at his grandfather's old house, deep in the woods of northern Georgia. The place was built in the early 1900s, made of dark wood, sitting in the middle of 10 acres with no neighbors. No internet, no cell service, just forest. It was supposed to be a week of clearing our heads, fishing, hiking, maybe smoking a little weed, just unwinding from school. It started out normal. The air was hot and still. You could hear the cicadas screeching like a warning, but we didn't think anything of it. The house had this weird smell. Not mold exactly, more like old water and burnt copper. But Isaiah said that was just how the place always smelled. His grandpa passed away in that house 5 years ago, and nobody had really lived in it since. The first night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing this, tapping, like someone was flicking their fingernails against the glass of the bedroom window. Soft, deliberate, rhythmic. But when I got up and looked, there was nothing there. I told myself it was a bug or a branch. I even opened the window and looked around. Nothing. Still, I couldn't shake the unease. The next day, Isaiah showed me the basement. Now listen, I've been in basements before, but this one, it was different. Stone walls, one bare bulb hanging from a wire, and in the far corner, there was this stain. It was dark brown, looked like water damage at first, but it had a weird shape, like fingers, like someone had been dragged. I asked Isaiah about it. He shrugged, said, "I don't go down there. Gives me the creeps." That night, I heard whispering. I know how that sounds. I thought it was Isaiah playing a prank on me, but when I sat up in bed and called out his name, it stopped. Dead silence. No wind. No bugs. Just that pressure in the air, like the whole house was holding its breath. The third day, things got worse. We were out near the old shed, about 50 yards behind the house, when I saw someone standing at the tree line. Not walking, not moving, just standing. It looked like a man, tall, thin, wearing something that looked like a black coat, but I couldn't make out the face. It was just too dark. I blinked. Gone. Now I'm not stupid. I know how the brain works. Peripheral vision, heat exhaustion, whatever. But this was not my imagination, because Isaiah saw it too, and he didn't say a word. Just turned around and walked back to the house fast. That night was the breaking point. It was around 2:30 in the morning. I woke up to the sound of dragging. Not footsteps, not shuffling, dragging, like something heavy being pulled across the wooden floor outside my room. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. I didn't move, didn't make a sound. Then I heard it stop, right outside my door, and then knock, just once. But it shook the door like a hammer. I couldn't breathe. I was frozen. Then I heard Isaiah scream from the other room. Not a playful scream, not a jump scare, a real scream, full of terror. I jumped out of bed and ran down the hall. His door was open. He was in the corner, shaking, eyes wide, mouth open, pointing toward the wall. It was crawling on the ceiling. That's what he said, over and over again. Now listen, I didn't see it, but I believe him, because when I turned around to look, there were handprints on the ceiling, faint, dusty, but there, 4 fingers and a thumb. We didn't sleep. We sat in the living room with the lights on until the sun came up. By 7 a.m., we had our stuff packed, didn't even lock the door. When we got into town, we went to a diner. Tried to laugh it off. Must have been bats. Maybe some homeless guy snuck in. But Isaiah pulled out his phone. He had taken a picture of the wall in the basement 2 years ago. Said it had creeped him out. Just something weird to show people. In the photo, there's a man standing in the corner. But here's the thing. You can see the whole room. There's no door behind him. No entrance. Just stone wall. And the man, his face is just a blur. No features. Just skin. We haven't talked about that house since. We don't joke about it. We don't go near it. And if you ask me if I believe in ghosts, I'll say no. Because ghost isn't the right word. That thing, whatever it was, it didn't want to scare us. It wanted to be seen, and I think it followed us. Because sometimes, late at night, I still hear that tapping, soft, deliberate, rhythmic, and I don't sleep until the sun comes up. You're not going to believe this, and to be honest, I still struggle to, but everything I'm about to tell you really happened. It was the summer of 2016, one of those brutally hot summers where even the breeze feels like it's dragging its feet through molasses. My cousin Leo had just come back from overseas, and he invited me to spend a week with him at his dad's old vacation house, about 3 hours north of where I lived, tucked into a forested area near a dried-up lake. It was isolated, quiet, too quiet, perfect for a getaway, right? Or so we thought. We arrived around noon on a Sunday. The place looked like it hadn't been touched in years. Dust on the windowsills, a few cobwebs, but structurally it was fine. 2 stories, wood cabin style, no neighbors for at least half a mile. No cell signal either, which we thought was just a minor inconvenience. We were wrong. That night, the very first night, something happened. Around 2:43 a.m., I remember because I checked my watch. I woke up feeling like I'd been slapped out of a dream. I wasn't sweating. I wasn't cold. I just sat up, alert, like something had yanked me out of sleep by the chest. And then I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 3 soft taps from under my bed. Now, I know how that sounds. And maybe you're thinking, old house. It could have been the wood expanding. I wanted to believe that too, but it didn't stop. I leaned over the edge, whispering Leo's name like a scared kid, hoping maybe he was messing with me, but he was in the other room. Another knock. Same rhythm, same place. I froze, didn't move, didn't speak, just stared into the dark space beneath the bed where my eyes couldn't reach. And then it stopped. The next morning I didn't mention it. Part of me was too embarrassed. The other part was trying to convince myself it didn't happen. But that second night, it wasn't just knocks. We were both watching a movie on Leo's old laptop, barely a quarter battery left, when it suddenly shut off. No low battery warning, no glitch, just black screen. Then the silence in the room hit us. That type of silence that presses in on your eardrums, like the air is listening. We laughed it off, awkwardly. Leo grabbed his phone. Dead. Mine too. That was when we both noticed the lamp in the corner was flickering, not like a faulty bulb. It was flickering rhythmically, almost like it was signaling. Leo looked at me, pale, his jaw slightly open, and then we heard it. Heavy, dragging footsteps upstairs. Slow, measured, each step followed by a distinct creak of old wood bending beneath weight. We both stood up, barely breathing. Leo whispered, "Maybe a raccoon?" I shook my head. No way. The steps were too heavy, too deliberate, so we grabbed a flashlight, and I kid you not, when we reached the top of the stairs, there was nothing. No raccoon, no sign of entry. Just one thing. The attic door, slightly open, not wide, just cracked, just enough. Leo never liked that attic. His dad had once told him, offhandedly, that it was where his uncle used to keep things he didn't want the family to see. And that night, we didn't open it. We went back down, both of us sleeping on the living room floor with all the lights on. It was that kind of fear, the kind that makes you abandon logic just to feel safe. The following day, we tried to leave. I swear we packed everything, but Leo's car wouldn't start. It wasn't the battery. It wasn't the gas. It was like something was jamming the engine. The tow company said they couldn't reach us for at least another day. The roads were partially flooded from a thunderstorm the night before, so we were stuck. That night was the worst. We'd gone to bed early, both of us exhausted, but around 3:11 a.m., again I checked. I woke up choking, not like a cough. I was being strangled. I shot up, gasping, clutching my neck, and that's when I saw her. There was a woman, standing at the far end of the hallway, barely lit by the glow of the bathroom nightlight. Her face was blurred, like the pixels on an old VHS tape, shimmering, shifting. Her hair was soaking wet, dripping onto the floor, making that tap, tap, tap sound. But the worst part? Her mouth. It was moving, not wide, not screaming, just silently mouthing something over and over again. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. I just lay there staring until Leo suddenly sat up and screamed. And when I turned back toward the hallway, she was gone. That morning we checked the floor where the woman had been standing. There were wet footprints, but only leading away, nothing coming in. We didn't sleep the next night, just stayed in the car waiting for the tow truck. When the mechanic finally came, he checked the engine and said it looked like something had gotten into the wiring, chewed through it. When we asked what kind of animal does that, he paused and said, "None that I've ever seen. These aren't bite marks." After we finally got home, I started digging. I asked Leo about that attic, asked if he knew what his uncle used to keep up there. Leo hesitated, then told me the story his dad never wanted to talk about. Back in the early 90s, Leo's uncle Victor had gone missing, just disappeared one night after locking himself in that attic. He had problems, paranoia, said people were watching him through mirrors, listening through the floor. The cops found his journal, pages filled with obsessive notes, drawings, and one repeating sentence. "She lives in the dark spaces, and she doesn't like to be forgotten." The family assumed he had a breakdown, wandered into the forest and got lost, but his body was never found, and suddenly, everything made sense. The knocks from under the bed, the wet woman, the dragging footsteps, the attic door. We didn't imagine it, we experienced it, and every logical thread we pulled led to something darker, something that had reason to be there, tied to that house, to that attic, to whatever was left behind. We never went back. Leo moved out of the country again. I kept the story to myself, until now, because sometimes the most terrifying things aren't the ones that jump out at you. They're the ones that wait, that tap, that drag, that whisper without sound, and they don't leave until you tell someone. So now you know. It happened the summer I turned 16, a summer that still lingers in the back of my mind like a fog I can't quite clear. My family had decided to rent a cabin by the lake, tucked away deep in the woods of northern Michigan. It wasn't luxurious. In fact, it was old, creaky, worn down, but with a kind of charm my parents called rustic. I didn't care much for charm. I just wanted to relax, maybe fish a little, maybe go swimming. What I got instead was something I still can't explain. The cabin sat on the edge of the lake, with a dock that stretched out into still water that barely rippled. At night, the woods wrapped around us like a shroud, thick with mosquitoes, crickets, and a silence that felt too deep. That was the first thing I noticed. Even during the daytime, it was quiet, unnaturally quiet. There were birds, but not many. No squirrels scurrying through the brush, no rustling leaves, unless we made the noise ourselves. The first few nights were normal. My younger brother and I shared a room with twin beds. My parents slept on the other end of the cabin. The walls were thin, so you could hear every creak, every door hinge, every footstep. But one night, around the 4th or 5th day, I woke up to what I thought was someone walking around the living room. At first, I figured it was Dad. He always got up to use the bathroom or drink water. But when I looked over, my brother was awake too, staring at the same ceiling, eyes wide open, like he was listening to it as well. The footsteps weren't fast. They weren't frantic. They were slow, deliberate, pacing back and forth over the warped wooden floor. Then they stopped, dead silence. No door opened. No one walked back to their room. And then I heard the breathing. It wasn't close, but it wasn't far either. It came from the direction of the kitchen. Not heavy, not shallow, just breathing, like someone standing still, watching. I whispered to my brother, "Did you hear that?" And he nodded slowly, without saying a word. The next morning, I asked my dad if he'd gotten up at night. He said no. My mom hadn't either. They didn't hear a thing, and maybe that would have been the end of it, if it didn't keep happening. Every night after that, just as we were drifting off to sleep, footsteps, breathing, and something new, scratching, sometimes faint, like fingernails on the windowsill. Other times, loud, inside the cabin, like something was dragging against the back wall. I started keeping a flashlight next to me. The regular lights didn't always work, not like they should have. One bulb flickered so much, my dad eventually unscrewed it, thinking it was just faulty wiring. But the batteries in my flashlight, they drained. Fast. Too fast. I replaced them twice in 3 days. One night, I decided I'd had enough. I stayed awake on purpose. I lay in bed, covers up to my chin, eyes locked on the doorway. I told myself I wouldn't sleep until I found out what was going on. Around what must have been the middle of the night, I heard it again. Footsteps, breathing, and then something different. A whisper. It wasn't words. Not at first. Just sound. Like a dry, breathy rasp moving through the living room toward the hall. I held my breath. The air in the room got cold. Ice cold. I could see my breath float upward like fog. And then the whisper stopped, right at the doorway. I couldn't see anything, but I felt it. That crushing sensation when someone stares at you from behind. My heart pounded so loud I was sure it would give me away. And then, just when I thought it would step into the room, the bunk bed creaked. My brother turned over in his sleep, and whatever was there, it backed away. But that wasn't the scariest part. The next morning, my brother asked me, in the quietest voice I've ever heard him use, "Did you see it?" I said no. He looked at me for a long time and just said, "It crouched." That's all he said. I asked him what he meant, and he shook his head. It crouched, like it was too tall to walk normal. I saw it in the hallway. I believed him. That day, I searched the cabin, top to bottom. I didn't find anything out of place. No hidden doorways, no animal droppings, no open windows. But in the hallway, right where my brother said he saw it crouch, the wooden planks had 3 long gouges in them, as if claws, not fingernails, had scraped across the surface. I told my parents. They didn't believe me. They said it was probably just the wood splitting. "It's an old cabin," my mom said. "That happens." Except it didn't happen anywhere else. The last night we stayed there, I didn't sleep. None of us did. Not after what happened. It was almost midnight when all 4 of us, me, my brother, my mom, and my dad, were woken up by a crash. Something slammed against the back of the cabin. The entire place shook. My dad ran to the back door and yanked it open. There was nothing there. No animal, no tree branch, no wind. Just the sound of the woods. Dead silent again. He locked the door. We all huddled in the living room. Nobody wanted to admit how scared they were, but you could see it in the way my mom clutched her rosary, in how pale my brother looked, in how quiet my dad was. That was when the cabin door unlocked itself. I swear to you, we all heard it. The deadbolt turned. Slowly. My dad jumped up, rushed to the door, flung it open. Still nothing. He walked out onto the porch with a flashlight, and I'll never forget what he saw. Footprints, human-shaped, but wrong. The toes were too long, the heel too narrow, and they were spaced out like the thing that made them had taken huge strides. They led from the woods, straight to our door, and they ended there. No return trail. We left the next morning, early, packed the car before sunrise. My dad didn't say a word the whole drive home. My mom cried quietly, thinking we didn't notice. That night, back in my own bed, I finally felt safe until I looked out the window. Across the street, standing beneath a streetlight, was a figure. Tall, thin, crouched, watching. I blinked. It was gone. We never went back to that cabin. My parents sold the remaining weeks of our rental. They never talked about it again. My brother doesn't either. But I still remember, not just the fear, but the logic of it. No ghost stories, no campfire tales, just events, real, experienced, undeniable. I didn't imagine it, and whatever it was, it didn't stay in the woods.